This episode is brought to you by Rhino 5K. Rhino 5K in Larimer Mile is not your average 5K. The race course runs completely on closed roads through the Rhino Art District and historic Curtis Park, full of beautiful homes and big trees. Register now at rhino5k.org before the price increases on September 8th. The race takes place on September 13th. Again, visit rhino5k.org and use discount code RUNCITYCAST for $5 off registration. Today on CityCast Denver, driverless cars are coming to Denver, but what will it mean for our already congested streets? Plus, Colfax's BRT construction is gobbling up hundreds of parking spots along the corridor. But Jill Locantori of the Denver Streets Partnership thinks there's an easy solution, and it involves all of those empty parking lots across the city. Today is Thursday, September 4th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Jill Locantori, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So, Jill, we just heard that Waymo, the self-driving rideshare, is coming to Denver. And you're someone that thinks about our transit situation all the time, and you spend a lot of time advocating for safer streets. I wonder, what do you think about this?
Yeah, so I think it's complicated. The reality is that humans are very bad drivers, and the vast majority of fatal traffic crashes are a human being driving a vehicle, right? So the fewer humans we have driving vehicles, the fewer traffic fatalities there will be. Ideally, that happens because people have other better options besides driving vehicles, like walking and biking and taking transit. Could robot vehicles be part of the solution? Maybe. It could really go either way. You know, I've heard people suggest what I think is a nightmare scenario where, like, you as a pedestrian have to wear a beacon at all times so the autonomous vehicles know where you are and can avoid hitting you. And if you're not wearing your beacon and you get hit, too bad. That would be a dystopia where the robots have taken over the world, right? But if we can regulate the autonomous vehicles so they are, in fact, way safer than human drivers, that could be a good thing. We could put all kinds of regulations on autonomous vehicles that we've been very reluctant to put on human-driven vehicles. Things like they absolutely cannot go faster than 20 miles per hour in downtown Denver. Or we could regulate the size and weight. They can't be bigger than a certain size, and that makes them safer. So it all comes down to how the city of Denver welcomes them onto our streets and what status are we giving them on the streets? Are they the overlords that we all have to bow down to, or are they the subservient puppies that we have to manage and make sure they're not causing any harm? So we'll see.
You're just making me think about 1,000 other things I did not think about when we got this news recently. But I mean, I personally love the speed idea, maybe regulating speed, and then that could in turn hopefully maybe change how people drive around those vehicles.
Exactly. They could become the pace setters, right?
Yeah, right, the pace cars.
If they're the ones that are taking up most of the space and all of them are going very slowly, that could be okay. But we have to put those regulations in place to make sure that's how it plays out.
Well, that I think remains to be seen, and we will definitely be checking in with you as these roll out, much like with scooters and bikes. You know, we've been having this ongoing conversation, so we knew we had to ask you. But I wanted to have you on today because you are the queen of talking about parking, and folks would say Denver has a parking problem. Many people say we don't have enough of it. I know that's not true. But I wonder, could you just summarize what, in your view, is Denver's parking problem?
So the problem is that parking is often the reason we can't have nice things. Every time we talk about making changes that a lot of people want, like adding better bike lanes, dedicated bus lanes, wider sidewalks, more trees and greenery on our city streets, the question always comes up, but what about parking? And it is totally true that often we have to remove parking spaces in order to make room for those other things. And too often the conversation ends there. Like, oh, well, it's too hard. We can't figure that out. We just won't do the nice thing. But it doesn't have to be that way, because often the problem isn't, in fact, that there's not enough parking. Usually there's way too much parking that's just being very poorly managed. It's not easily accessible to the general public. And so there's a whole lot we could be doing to better manage the parking that we do have, match it with the actual demand for parking, so that we can make room for these other really nice things that we all want in our city.
So we'll talk about this big idea you have in a minute, but Denver Streets Partnership recently conducted a parking management study in the East Colfax area earlier this summer. Can you just give us sort of a brief overview of what you all found with this study?
Yeah, so as the build out of the BRT is happening, this is an instance where the city is, in fact, going to be removing parking spaces to make room for those dedicated bus lanes and enhanced amenities for pedestrians on the corridor. It's going to require the removal of about 300 parking spaces along the corridor. And so we thought, what a great opportunity for us to be proactive and think about, how do we prepare for this change in the parking supply so it's as painless as possible, and we're managing parking on the corridor in a way that supports the goals of the BRT, which is encouraging people to use modes other than driving to get around the corridor. And then that could become a model for other corridors. We're talking about building bus rapid transit on Federal Boulevard and Colorado Boulevard. If we can figure out how to solve this problem on Colfax, hey, maybe it could help us in those other parts of the city too. So two of the main things we found was what I said earlier. There is an abundance of underutilized off-street parking along the Colfax corridor. There's way more off-street parking than there is on-street parking. And we compiled together a bunch of different surveys and found, on average, only about 30 to 40% of those spots are filled at any given time. So there's a ton of parking available that is not being used, either because it's not being made available to the public or people just don't know about it. And then the other big thing that we found is that most people are willing to pay more for parking if those revenues are reinvested in programs along the Colfax corridor that support walking and biking and transit along the corridor. So we thought, well, these are two really great opportunities we could tap into. And that's where our proposal for our parking benefits district came in.
Well, that's your big idea. Let's talk about that, because you're like saying, okay, there is parking available. Also, people are potentially willing to pay for it. What is the parking benefits district? Like, what would this look like?
So the idea is we would have an entity in the form of the district that would coordinate management of on and off street parking. So they would work with all those private property owners to make that off street parking supply more easily available to the public. We would use pricing to manage demand for that parking. So there's less on-street parking, so that should be more expensive. There's more off-street parking, that should be less expensive. And then we use the revenues that are generated by these paying for, the market value, basically, for the on and off street parking, and invest that in programs along the corridor, like buying eco passes for every single employee who has a job on the Colfax corridor, or paying for better wayfinding and marketing so people can actually find the off-street parking, or paying for ambassadors. We're going to have hopefully a bunch more people arriving on Colfax via the bus. We should have ambassadors greeting them, welcoming them to the corridor, helping them find where they need to go on the corridor. So we worked with a bunch of neighborhood associations, business districts, and other partners along the corridor to come up with this proposal. This is very much a community-driven proposal, and we're now calling upon the city to work with us to actually make it happen.
This episode is brought to you by MultiPass. Founded by event hosts for event hosts, right here in Denver. Sell tickets and memberships and find local events with MultiPass. Proudly based in Denver and deeply rooted in the local event and creative scene. You can build vibrant communities with a unique community chat feature that unlocks post-RSVP. This helps attendees connect and engage. So I guess if you're going to a show, this would be a place where you could say, hey, is anyone else going to this show? You want to go get a drink after or a bite to eat before? Revenue sharing tools are built in which automatically splits ticket revenue between producers, performers, and promoters. They have membership management tools to build loyalty with your audience and secure recurring attendance. And it's designed to help everyone in the event ecosystem, not just promoters or people putting on events, but you too, just someone wanting to go have a good time. You can learn more at multipass.com. That's multipass.com. This episode is brought to you by the Colfax Avenue Bid. Because Denver's most legendary bar crawl is back, and this one ends with a bang. Saturday, September 6th, join the Colfax community for Next Stop Colfax Bar Crawl, a celebration of our iconic bars, street culture, and local music. The crawl starts at 3 p.m. and ends with a huge concert at the Squire Lounge at 9, featuring Wayne and Nello, who are awesome, with special guests EME and Off the Cuff performing the song of the summer. Nothing else has emerged, so I'm saying it. It's the song of the summer, Next Stop Denver, Colfax Avenue's newly adopted anthem that they know you'll love. RSVP early, and you can score our limited edition crawl shirt created in collab with Denver's own Beautiful. Look great. Look cool. Bars beats beautiful merch. Head to colfaxavenue.com for details and RSVP info. That's colfaxave.com. This is the bar crawl of the year. Don't miss your stop.
So I want to get to the city in a minute, but I'm also thinking about these private lots that are owned by people or businesses. And I think that's what you're alluding to with some of this excess parking that's not on the street is I'm thinking about, I talked to you a couple weeks ago about this, and then I started noticing like, oh, when I was at Champagne Tiger, there was 2 giant empty parking lots just down the street, one at a church and one just literally it was a half a block of empty parking. Have you connected with these mysterious landlords that own these giant parking lots? Like, A, who are they? And B, would they be interested in something like this where revenues from their parking lots may have to go to something else?
Yeah, so as part of the study, we did connect with property owners to talk to them about their parking and why they did or did not make it available to the public. And what we found was that property owners are definitely receptive to the idea of making parking more widely available. They just don't necessarily want to deal with the headache of managing that. And so that's the whole idea of having a district is you can have a centralized entity who can be kind of a broker between, okay, here's the property owner, here's a parking management company. You know, there's a bunch of different companies in Denver like Metropolis or Laz, and they set up the whole payment system and they take care of, you know, charging the person to park there and enforcing that requirement. So the property owner doesn't have to worry about all of that. That's what we found is like, if somebody else could help us make this happen, we'd be interested in talking about it.
That's so interesting to me because I'm just thinking about, Colfax is just like the greatest example to me because in particular, music venues, right? There's tons of music venues along the corridor. Parking is limited, but it's just that it's not accessible to folks. And so you're saying a lot of these property owners would say, yeah, I'm down, but I need somebody to manage that lot that just sits empty right now.
And from the consumer perspective, to make it more consistent, right? Because some of that is happening already. You'll have a property owner like the Wendy's will make their parking lot available for the Fillmore during the concert, but they're, you know, independently deciding how much to charge for the parking and how to advertise it. And so you get this total hodgepodge of parking that's inconsistently priced, inconsistently available. And it's very confusing as a member of the public to figure out where the heck can I park? So if you have a district, it can be helping coordinate. So there's more consistency about where the parking is, how much it costs, and clear signage and marketing to help people figure that all out.
That kind of gets to this like mental block that I think I do personally as a Denverite. I have where I think of I'm going to a place and I think of the area and I don't really know what the parking situation is. And that might change what I do that day. But if I know, oh, East Colfax, they have this parking district. I know if I go to any lot within this area, it'll be consistent. There'll be somewhere I can actually park and I can pay and it's not going to be, you know, it's like $25 or something anytime you want to park at the Wendy's for a show, which I understand that's kind of like surge pricing. But what you're saying is like, this could be like a coordinated effort that also allows the general public to understand there will be something available if I go to a show at the Bluebird.
Exactly. It's that predictability. We spent a lot of time talking with our stakeholder committee about everybody wants parking to be free,
Right.
directly in front of where they're going, and always empty when they need it. And who wouldn't want to live in that fantasy world where you go somewhere and there's this parking is dedicated for Jill, and I'm the only one who's allowed to park there, and I never have to pay for it. That's not the reality, especially in a vibrant district like Colfax. You have to prioritize what's most important to you. And what we heard from our stakeholders was that predictability of I can find a parking space where I need it. If it's a little bit further and I have to walk or block it to get to my final destination, that's fine. If I have to pay for it, that's fine. I just want to know that it's there. And so that's really what informed the recommendations that we came up with.
BRT is coming to other major arteries in the city. What a great thing if we could start proactively dealing with an issue like parking before they start building, and taking away parking spaces during that construction as well.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a predictable problem that comes up over and over again. And it's not just transit, it's also bike lanes, or, there's lots of conversations in West Denver about how do we add more trees and greenery, and that might require removing parking. And so instead of always saying, oh, we can't because it would require removing parking, we have some tools in our toolkit. Yes, we can solve this problem. We've tried it out here, and now we know how to do it elsewhere too.
Has this been done before? Is there a model city or neighborhood that has implemented something like this that we could look to?
Absolutely. We did a lot of research on case studies from across the country, and parking benefit districts have been around for literally decades in different cities. And so there's lots of great success stories to point to, including in our own backyard in Boulder. In downtown Boulder, the city actually plays the role of managing what is basically a parking benefits district. They provide coordinated management of on and off-street parking. The off-street parking is cheaper because that's more abundant. They use revenues from parking and from some other sources to buy eco passes for all of the employees in downtown Boulder. So we really looked to them as a model when we were developing our proposal.
So it's really not that far. It's really right in our backyard. This is already something that seems to be working.
Exactly. I mean, from our perspective, it feels like a no-brainer. Like, it's been proven to work in other places. There's a clear need that this could address. The community is behind it. We're just proposing it as a pilot. Let's just test it out and see if it works.
So at this stage in the game, after this study, and I guess just where are you now? What's the next step?
Really, the ball is in the city's court, when we're talking about the public right of way and parking meters that are owned by the city. They have to buy in and be willing to at least allow this experiment to move forward. So we've presented our case to them. We got a bunch of our stakeholder committee members to sign on to a letter asking the city to please move forward. And so we're just continuing to have discussions with them, hoping that we can actually get this district launched by 2027 when the BRT service starts operating.
And so you're saying this is just a pilot. So worst case scenario, people lied about wanting to walk those couple of blocks. This is how we would find that out.
Exactly. And that really, I think, is so much better than doing study after study after study that speculates on what might happen. People are often kind of hard to predict. And so the best way to find out how people are going to react is to try something out in the real world. And again, if it's a failure, that's a lesson we learned as well. But we're pretty confident that we'll actually be successful, and this will be the type of program that will be good to replicate all across the city.
Jill, thank you so much. This was really delightful.
Well, thank you for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell Laz Parking CEO Alan Lazowski about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city.